So I wish you all welcome to this workshop about policy actions. We have an interesting agenda today, and we will end up with the panel discussion, and all of you are really warmly welcome. We will have a word cloud session just before the panel discussion, and that means that you will send in 5 keywords which you think are important for water management in the other agricultural landscapes, maybe connected to policy issues. What are the five keywords that you would like to put into the discussion? So we will have this word cloud just before the panel discussion. And Kaja Pettersson from SEI Tallinn will facilitate the discussion, and I will try to contribute. I will just show you some slides here as a starter. Yes, it works, and tell you about a little bit about the story of WaterDrive in some few minutes. And we named this project WaterDrive 3 years ago when we started out, because we thought that water can play a much more important case for rural areas than only water quality issues. So the hypothesis when we started was that water management can actually drive rural development, business activities, attractiveness in the landscapes, etc. So that was our start off, and why we initiated WaterDrive. So we have been working with 23 partners from 8 countries, including Russia, and working together with the research, academia, authorities, advisory services. And we have, our story goes through those four work packages. How can we increase the cross-sector participation? How can we use more efficiently technologies and new methods? And what are the issues and what are the gaps when it comes to policy issues? And that is what we will discuss here today. And what are the strategic impacts? And our method has been, how have we came to those conclusions that Kaja will tell you more closely about. Our method has been to communicate with the partners in, I think we have had 9 case areas in the different countries. So we have had a dialogue with the organizations and partners there, and from there we have developed our policy suggestions. And it's obviously from all this discussion during those 3 years that we have good opportunities actually to develop and overcome the issues concerning water quality and water management in the Baltic Sea region. But there are several gaps, but one of the major gaps that we have observed is the lack of bottom-up approaches and the lack of involving the local stakeholders. And there is also this issue of holistic water management. Water management includes many issues. And we started out the project in this fashion. We had several different themes or questions connected to water in the agricultural landscape. And what has happened during implementation and explicitly in the case areas is that those different themes have come together in the local discussion. And if you look at the farmers and for the local authorities, it is as important about the nutrient leakage as it is about supporting biodiversity and rural development and carbon sequestrations. All those different issues are integrated on the local level. And what we have found, I think we will ask the panelists that question actually, because what we have found is that there is a leadership on the local level to connect agricultural and environmental issues. We can see that the leadership on the local level, but it's a lack on the national level. So I think that is one of the issues that we will ask our panelists. And you have all those different interests working in the landscape, and they have actually come together, and it's from this communication when you are working cross-sector that something starts to happen, and you can see that from the case area reports. If you go and check out the WaterDrive website, it's when the different sectors come together that you can see the change. I'm sure we will, during the day, we will connect to all those different frameworks and requirements. We have the Green Deal, the CAP discussion, biodiversity strategy, bioeconomy strategy. You recognize all those different frameworks and policies. So I'm sure we will connect to them, but what we maybe is lacking is the drive from the climate change, and this is observed also on the local level very clearly, that climate change is something that really engages the local level partner organizations and persons. They are really into the issues of climate change, how we can mitigate climate change and how we can adapt when it comes to water management to climate change. So this is a little bit our background, and all our suggestions and findings actually come from this bottom-up approach. And our challenge is a little bit today how to see how we can connect the bottom-up approach with the top-down approach. We will talk about those three questions, and I think you, Kaja, will come back to them more closely. I mean, how do you see the recommendations from WaterDrive? Are they relevant or are they not relevant? How can policies support this local level joint action more clearly? And of course, if some of our speakers are willing to share their target picture of the future, that is super nice to see. Interesting enough, the CIP voting is today in the EU Parliament. It's happening the same day, and I think Kaja, I think it's too late to submit some of the recommendations from our workshop today to that voting. But anyway, if you look what they write about the coming CAP reform, it includes some of the keywords that we also have discussed during WaterDrive implementations, like more flexible financing mechanisms, moving towards result-based approaches, and especially taking into account the needs of the local conditions. but let's see how close we come to that in reality. But so with that, it's a little bit about the background from WaterDrive. I hope we will have an interesting discussion today, and let's move on. So thank you very much, Kaja, and please go ahead.
So welcome to our policy seminar today, and as Staffan was already pointing out, it's quite an important day at the EU level as well, since the European Parliament is taking a formal vote on the Common Agricultural Policy strategic planning, and also how the different EU policies that have been publicized and need to be implemented at the member state level will lay out, and how they would interact with each other, complement each other, and to deliver the best outcome. And we are specifically looking at the food, soil, and water interaction very much indeed. So I'm Kaja Peterson, and I'm working at the Stockholm Environment Institute Tallinn Center as a senior expert, and I have been the work package leader for policy and finances. So today I will give a brief overview of what we have found during our 3-year or almost 3-year project, in terms of why things haven't worked out as we have liked. The focus is on water management in agriculture landscape. And we have derived 10 strategic recommendations from our work in different work packages, derived from communicating and talking with the landowners and farmers. We have special findings from our academic and expert level work, who have developed different tools and methodologies to assist the farmers to do the best decisions regarding their water, soil, and food interactions, and then what we have discovered from the governance perspective, either at the country level, regional level, and local level, and also what are the needs in education and environmental investments. Then we have 2 keynote presentations, and then we take a short coffee break, and then we have also a keynote from our project, which is very much addressing the same questions from the academic point of view, and what are the main outcomes and policy recommendations arising from the bonus project. Then we have a panel discussion. We want to address those 3 questions that Staffan put on the screen, but we will come back to them. But before the panel discussion, we will have a short Mentimeter reflection or survey. What are your thoughts? I mean, the thoughts of all the participants regarding the water management, and what is your vision? And then we end with a wrap up and some conclusions that are being helped by one of a real farmer. She is the award award nominated Baltic Farmer Award this year, coming from Estonia, and to hear her reflections and how she sees the water management from the grassroots level, so to speak. So this is the plan of the seminar. I would go straight to the WaterDrive main results, and the main observations as already very much addressed by Staffan already, but just to reiterate some of the key issues that and what we would like to draw attention of the policymakers, the administrators, both at the national level and the local level, but also at the land managers and landowners level. So we have been working on all the actors have been working on how to improve the water quality, how to reduce the eutrophication of the Baltic Sea for decades already. There are international organizations like HELCOM specifically for the Baltic Sea region, but also Europe-wide. And several policies have been developed and implemented, but still we have to recognize that the situation is far from agreeable, and we would like to do more. So WaterDrive is very much would like to draw the attention of all the actors that the integration of different sectors is needed. That action is the key word, and that the climate needs to be integrated into all other policies as well. And otherwise, we can't probably achieve the ambitious Green Deal or farm to fork policies and all the other policies as well. But not only policies, but for the good and well-being of all the people. WaterDrive also draws the attention that probably there is a need for identifying hotspots or high-risk areas, either of those two extremes where there is too much water or the water is scarce. And to address those hotspots with special measures and policy interventions. So we are talking about the climate and food and the environment. We would like to recognize the importance of local communities, the landowners, land managers as the main drivers, and they have to be taken very seriously and joined in common joint action, and also to provide them with financial mechanisms and also the new tools and methods that are being developed to become to use the resources efficiently and to maintain the soil fertility for a long time. So we have 10 strategic recommendations. Don't be scared about the long text here. This is just to afterwards, when the presentations are shared, just to come back and review them. But I would like to draw some of the highlights of our recommendations, as I said, derived from lots of work being done by different work packages, our partners, associated partners, and the farmers in the field. So starting from the from the high level or governance levels, then we are suggesting that there should be a good cooperation and preferably interministerial cooperation units, whatever they would be called. We have been calling it Interministerial Commission, which looks at holistically at the water management in agricultural landscapes and from different perspectives. And as I said, the climate and water hotspot areas, either from the point of view where the water is it scarcity or too much water because of the climate change, that those hotspot areas probably is a good idea to define and identify around the Baltic Sea. Then the farmers' motivation and responsibilities are very important. Although, yeah, it's a economic sector, it's a market sector, but giving the conditions that very much depend on the environmental conditions, situations, and in order to secure the food production, there are enough financing and incentives and also leadership needed. Catchment officers and water expertise has also been a target area in our project, where both the experiences gained in Denmark and in Sweden have been discussed across the partnership in our project and also with the external partners, how to integrate the water expertise with the environment and both the local level and the governmental level, and who should finance these positions and how to make the best use of the knowledge. The catchment level support programs, which are either EU subsidized or the government level subsidized, are definitely very much needed. And also the cross-sectoral local collaboration needs to be looked at, and all the actors need to be involved. Regarding the water scarcity or the too much water, the drainage issues, then again, those investments are very important. And probably since the catchment is a larger area than just a region or a country, or maybe several countries are involved, then the investments should be looked at more at the catchment level. And as said already many times, the role of the local authorities, municipalities, together with the farmers and the different other businesses, are very important, and the role has to be recognized and strengthened. Yeah, because the spatial planning, territorial planning make the framework of landscape level water management. Also, research needs to be enhanced, especially towards the integrated climate and water risk management, and also WaterDrive has produced several tools how to support the decisions together with the research community, with the farmers and local governance at local scale. And finally, of course, this learning and inspiring the actors is also very, very important, because when learning from the practices and the good practices. The best practices is providing the stepping stone for the next actions. These are the stepping stones that WaterDrive has been looking at, starting from the bottom, from the leadership and vision to the already very concrete investments that are needed at regional or local level. And summary of the summary, we have developed 4 issues. Maybe it's easier to remember from those 10. What are the key words? The joint action, integrating the water objectives with other sustainability objectives, identifying the priority areas for climate and water, and also provide competitive business models for the farmers, not only relying on subsidies and payments, but also to make it also a market-based deliverers. These were the policy or strategic recommendations that our project has come so far, with many interventions, interactions, and iterations. And we would like to hear more about your visions, your ideas, whether our findings and recommendations go inside what you have been working on or thinking of. So I would like to give the floor now to Christina Ingram, who is the chair of the Swedish Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture and the Environment, and to hear her first ideas and reflections how the water management should be organized, what are still the challenges, and how to implement those policies, how to make them into action. So, Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me or giving me the opportunity to give some thoughts and perspective on this very important issue. Unfortunately, I won't be able to participate in the panel discussion, but I will leave some time for questions after my presentation. But I would like to focus on 3 aspects that I think are key for developing policies for more action. And the first one is that we really need to put water in the center of discussion in society, in the farmers' organization, but above all in politics. And we need to let it flow into all the relevant policy areas. I think Staffan's introduction was on point because we have had very much focus, especially in politics. We've had very much focus on eutrophication. And we've had a very successful work in Sweden when it comes to how to lower the nutrient loss in agriculture connected to water. But I think that since 2018 and the very severe drought that we had in Sweden and in Europe, in many other countries as well, I think we've had a different view on water, and we see that water is also key when it comes to climate change. We need to see water connected to adaptation and to connect it to agriculture resilience, and that it is truly key in order to be able to produce food in the future. And I think that this has broadened the aspect of water and agriculture within politics, which is very much needed. And I see it in how we discuss the Common Agricultural Policy in my committee, that we do not only focus on eutrophication. We talk about how can we use the Common Agricultural Policy and measures in order to help the farmers in Sweden to adapt to climate change, both too much water and too little water, and also how to work with biodiversity and other societal aspects that agriculture bring. And I think that we also need to, when it comes to seeing water from different perspectives, we need to see how rules and regulations in other policy areas connect and affect the work with water in agriculture. One example that is being discussed in Sweden, it is if you, as a farmer, create a wetland, you will not be able to build 100 meters from it, because then it will be some special rules connected to it, which leads that some farmers do not want to create wetlands, which would be good. We also have other rules regarding biodiversity, which stops efficient use of irrigation measures. So we need to really see how different policy, other policy areas affect the possibilities for farmers to work with agriculture. The second that is important is we need to secure a broad political support for the problems, but above all for the solutions. And we have some examples on how we work with this within the Swedish Parliament. And I think that is really key in order to develop policies, but also go from policy to actual implementation. One example is we have a cross-party committee on environmental objectives. And every second year they choose a new topic to work with, where they one representative from all the political parties in the parliament really dive into this problem. And the last one was the ocean and the Baltic Sea. And they come up with a set of recommendations, and they have a very broad agreement on these recommendations, which makes this very easy for the government to actually take these recommendations and turn them into reality. So this is important groundwork for policy to actually be implemented. And there are several recommendations in that their last report that connects to water and agriculture. Another example is the Committee of Agriculture and Environment. We had a study regarding resilience and vulnerability of Swedish farmers, a report that was presented this last year. And it also focused on, among other things, water connected to agriculture and how climate change affects both too much water and too little water, and that this is really important. So the committee says that when creating policy, when working with the Common Agricultural Policy, we need to focus on resilience of agriculture connected to water. So these are some examples of how we can work to actually build a solid ground for decisions to be taken later on. And third, I think it's really important to organize the policy work and organize the implementation in an efficient way, and make sure that the ones who are the actors actually have the money and the tools for implementation. And when looking at the organization in Sweden, I think we are still working a lot with downpipes. instead of working with gutters. We have many different regulations regarding water, but they don't always connect with each other. And this is something that this cross-party Committee of Environmental Objectives actually lifts up, that we have to organize the work in order to be effective. I also, when organizing the policy and the implementation, I think that the bottom-up perspective that has been very successful in Sweden is we have to make sure that there are financial support for local initiatives, because there is a big interest from farmers to work at the local level, and it has been very successful for a long time in Sweden. And the committee actually did a follow-up in 2015 looking at local water work, and the results were very, very good. So it is truly important that we secure long-term financial support for this work. And I also think that it's important to use the method of, in Sweden we have focus on nutrients, which is advisory work on lowering the nutrients. And I think that is a good way to connecting measures in the common agricultural policy with advisory work and actually make the measures happen on farm level.
Yeah. So what I gathered from your presentation was that, yeah, it's more, it's maybe the attention should be more horizontal governance, and now it has been more vertical governance, but otherwise there is a good combination of the governmental resources, but also the EU ones, and so to make it an efficient system. So thank you, Christina, for your thoughts and sharing with us how this actually is put into practice. We will hear from our good colleague from Denmark, Flemming, and how it looks like from the Danish perspective, and whether this local actors and involving the local actors has been efficient, and how it can be improved. So Flemming, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here making a presentation, and I will try to get it up on the screen.
If you could put it full screen, then it's
yeah, I'll try.
Yeah.
Okay, is that working?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much. My name is Flemming Gert. I'm a chief consultant at SIGES, that is Knowledge Center for Agriculture in Denmark. I will have a talk about some new Danish policy initiative for local level action. And what I want to talk about is, first, I want to give a short insight in Danish water governance and nitrogen regulation, because often decision made in each country doesn't really make sense for other outside the country if we don't understand what has happened in the country. So that's why I will make this insight. And then I will talk about this new Green Deal for agriculture, and then I want to finish with some perspectives on top-down, bottom-up regulation. So Danish agriculture, as you know, a lot of farmland, a lot of farmers, historical, it has been family ownership, and a lot of the land is used for growing crops for meat production and milk production. So, and of course, as you probably know, we produce a lot of pigs. So that's characterized. And another thing is that we have this long coastline and a lot of shallow coastal waters, and they are vulnerable for nutrients. So since the 80s, the main water environment focus have been on these shallow waters, and therefore on mainly on nitrogen. So you can say the public debate about getting better water environment in coastal waters is almost the same as reducing nitrogen. So water environment and nitrogen just links very tight together in Denmark. And what has happened since the early 90s is that we have reduced the nitrogen concentration and the loads to the coastal waters with 50%. But as you can see, the last 10 years, there has not really been any significant or at all any significant decrease in nitrogen. So why is that, and what decision do we make now? This decrease has been due to a top-down implementation of different measures. Especially, we have increased the utilization of animal manure from just putting manure out and then fertilizer, also mineral fertilizer. So the use have made it possible to make a reduction of mineral fertilizer with 50%, and that is a main explanation why we have reduced the nitrogen to coastal waters that much. But of course, also a lot of other initiatives since the 80s, and I won't go through them, but a lot of the main point is here that all this is done by legislation. So that's a main point. So it has worked, but as you can see, it hasn't worked the last 10 years. So it had worked for a certain amount of time, and now it doesn't really work anymore. Or of course it worked, but we can't decrease the nitrogen level further, or it's very difficult. So there's just last month in October, the Danish government and actually the whole parliament made this new deal for a green transformation of Danish agriculture. And there is some principles. The most important is that the agriculture must be made more climate and environmental friendly while being economical sustainable. So agriculture must be developed and not phased out. And there is some headlines below here, and one of them is about climate. So they made a decision for a binding reduction of greenhouse gas emission with 50–60% in 2030 compared to 90s. And there is 2 tracks below there to take lowland organic rich soils out of production, maybe up to 100,000 hectares. And then there is a development track to lower methane emission and making green fuels and a lot of interesting new things that has to be developed. And then there is a track saying that we try to go more for producing green food, green proteins, and starting a track away from or at least to a certain extent away from animal proteins. And this is a field to table and export initiative. And then there is the nitrogen target. So it has been calculated with some models that we need to reduce almost 11,000 ton nitrogen within 2027 to live up to the Water Frame Directive, and the load today is 55,000 ton, and this is a really big target, because as you saw the last 10 years nothing has really happened. So how should we make that possible? So the idea is to go in two tracks to reduce nitrogen. One is regulation, and another one is voluntary measures that is compensated. So we already done wetlands, and some years ago we started reconstructed wetlands also. But this is just being a major part of the solution, and because now there is 6,500 ton on regulation and 1,500 ton on voluntary measures. But the idea is that every second year there is a status, and if more can be done with voluntary measures or vice versa, numbers can change between the tracks. So the idea is to start with the carrot and then say, okay, what can you do? Can you make 1,000 ton? Can you make 2,000 ton? Can you make 5,000 ton? Go ahead. And if not, you will be regulated. My personal comment to the regulation is that I think it will be difficult to find a good way to make regulation and get that number. So we don't actually know if that's possible, but we know we can reduce a lot of nitrogen with the voluntary measures. So you can say we put more effort into voluntary measures instead of making legislation. So that's kind of really new and a change. And another really interesting new initiative is that the government had set money aside for doing pilot project. That is my word, but I would call it local-based water plants instead of these top-down water plants running. So it's an experiment running in 3 years and has to be evaluated in 2024, based on a local partnership and a local-based way to get good ecological status in our coastal waters. So for me, this is very interesting. We have worked with this in WaterDrive and in other Interreg projects for some years. So this is a chance for these local partnerships to show that they can actually make it better than with only top-down regulation. And then another new initiative is that there is done a work for better or faster implementation of wetland and drain pipe solutions and lowlands and all this stuff, because there is simply a need for better local planning and collaboration if we need to speed up all these voluntary measures. Okay, so this is actually what the New Deal is about, and so for the next years we will actually doing these local-based water plan that is completely new in Denmark. So talking about top down and bottom up, and what we see when we are going to make water planning is that it's a very good idea to start with building partnerships, describing the water, setting goals, find solutions, make a plan for a program, and then implement the plan, and then do it all over again. And what is interesting is that when we do top-down, you can do top-down everywhere, and you can also you can do it on the implementation, because you just make legislation. And that is what we have done primarily the last maybe 20-30 years in Denmark. But there is a downside, and that is lack of trust. That is no ownership to solve the problems. When you just get legislation out, you don't think about the problems. You just, okay, that's something I had to do. And if you push it hard, if you push the top-down legislation hard, you will get confrontation. And that is also, I can tell a long story about that, but we had protest movements against this in sometimes really hard top-down legislation. So you can say it has worked, but there is always a balance, and you have to balance these things. So we have reduced nitrogen with 50%. Now we have to do other stuff, but we are in a state where we mentally have not worked with solving the problems on a local scale, and there is a lack of trust, and there is confrontation. So that's where we have to start now with a lot of voluntary measures. So that's a tough start. And if we
Fleming,
yeah.
could I just interrupt you
Yeah.
for a short minute, because I know Christina Ingram have to leave in 2-3 minutes, and we would just open if there are any questions for her, and then we continue with your interesting presentation, Fleming. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, I have maybe one slide left. I think this is the only slide I have left, actually. So, well, okay, you can, if you you can take some questions.
I can stay just a few more minutes after. So finish your presentation, and then
okay,
I can.
Okay. So
okay, super.
So this is just my picture of water management in the future, that we get this balance between, of course, there has to be some top down, but there has to be a lot of bottom up, and we have to take them step by step. We have to understand that we need to build partnerships first. Then we need to together to see how do the water look like. Then we need to set the goals, and then we need to design the plan, and then there is a lot more trust to make, and a lot more effort, and a lot of other farmers and so on want to do the implementation, because they have trust all the way through. So we have to see these steps, and we have to get a good balance, and the balance is different in each steps. And what is happening if we get too much top down? Then we will maybe lose the focus for the carrot if we are punished with some hard top-down legislation. So the balance is everything, and we need to really find that. It's very difficult, and I haven't seen any good balance in any country so far, but I think we should work hard to find it. So that was my presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Fleming. We will probably, there will be lots of questions, at least I have. But yeah, regarding the Christina's presentation, as Staffan said, yeah, probably there are also some questions that I can't see, but is it in the chat room, or you would, the participants would like to pose some direct questions before Christina has to leave?
I have one question, Staffan, here. So Christina, you talked about the need of broad political support, and that is kind of leadership for putting water in the center of. But I know a little bit about, there is a good dialogue in Sweden between different actors and different authorities, but do you need to spike that broad political support? Do you think we need some kind of commission, some kind of basic reporting outline? From WaterDrive, we know this is a complex issue. And to understand the complexity, and Fleming also points that out, and do we need some kind of political report or some kind of baseline study to push the issue further? What is your opinion, Christina?
I think that at least in Sweden, politics is there and actually have quite a few different suggestions and recommendations that could be put into implementation. But I think that the big problem in Sweden is that we don't have the synergy effect between the different areas, and it's on different agencies, and payment is on one level and the decisions is on another level. And I think the organization is what needs to be dealt with first in order to actually have things happening. And that is also something that this parliamentarian group pointed at, that the complexity of the organization of water work in Sweden makes it difficult for the policy to actually get into action.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christina, once again, and yeah, I hope you can follow our seminar also afterwards when we share the presentations and the recording. So just to get the views of from different angles. But anyway, thank you so much for your time and contribution. But coming back to Fleming's presentation, I'm also asking the participants for their questions or clarifications. I think Fleming touched very important issues, and at least these have been the cross-cutting issues throughout the WaterDrive project. And I see Mikael has raised hand and Sirka. So Mikael, please go first.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Fleming, you showed one slide with very high utilization rate for manure, almost 90%. I suppose this is for slurry and not for solid manure.
This is for, yeah, there is differences. Maybe it is for pig manure. I think it is actually. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sirka, please.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to ask Fleming about this nitrogen level, because you showed this slide where there was almost stable level. Was it loading or concentration? I don't remember. Concentration. But yeah. I would like to ask you, what was the reason, according to your opinion, that it hasn't decreased since that, let's say, 10 years after? Was it that there were no measures, or did you consider, for instance, that climate change is affecting to this level? And then I would like to ask, you showed only nitrogen. Are you not worried about phosphorus at all?
Yes, I am. Yeah, okay. I am worried about phosphorus, and actually also the coastal waters is vulnerable for phosphorus, but it's not part of the national debate, even though phosphorus is important. And the phosphorus has declined very much due to point source reduction, but there has not been any effort in the open land for reducing phosphorus. So that has been the same for 30 years. So there's a potential for reducing phosphorus, and that's a very important task also for the future, as we point to. So yes, that's a good thing, good question. And then your other question was, oh, sorry, what was that?
It was about this nitrogen that during these last 10 years it hasn't decreased.
Yeah. Why hasn't it decreased? One main reason is that we have now implemented all the, the low-hanging fruits. We have made hard regulation. We have, our fields are green, a lot of catch crops, the manure and all the fertilizer is controlled very hard and so on. So we are at the end of the potential with this system. Of course, this should continue because it has worked, but we haven't really, taken the next steps for doing it in another way. And that's what we have been looking into the last 10 years. So I think that's the main reason. The concentration there is filtered for climate variation. So it's not because it rains anymore more than it did before. So, but we had to completely change the way we look at the landscape, and maybe also we had to take more land out of production. Maybe we had to change the crops we produce. One really interesting new development is that we are looking into getting proteins out of grass, and with these proteins we can feed pigs. So instead of producing wheat that has a higher loss of nitrogen, we can produce grass not only to cows but to pigs. That would be, a paradigm shift. If that is, the system is working. The question is, can we scale it up? So these kind of paradigm shifts will be necessary if we should be able to reduce with a lot more than we do now. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. But Fleming, regarding, your main point of this presentation was, that you would like to, or you stressed the need for local cooperation, and that the Danish policy is moving towards how to make things happen and implement it at the local level. But my question is, who has to take the lead? Who has to take the initiative? What is your view? Because there are several actors, but there should be an actor who takes the lead. Who is that?
That's a really good question, because somebody has to lead. And what we see now, the last 5 years, is that it is actually the agriculture that is taking the lead in many places. One of the places is the pilot where we have worked in the WaterDrive, and the one that has taken the lead is the local agriculture farmer union that say we can't live with this hard top-down regulation anymore. So we need to find the better ways. So they have worked hard and find this local partnership, and WaterDrive have facilitated that they have now made a local partnership with the local municipalities, with the green organization, with the Southern University of Southern Denmark, with the water company and so on. And they now made an official local partnership that are ready to work. So And then there is another area in Denmark where the local municipality have taken the lead. So I think it differs from area to area, but for the moment we see that in several places it is actually the agriculture that is taking the lead. But as long as they make a good organization and so on, it doesn't really matter who takes the lead and make trust between the local partners.
Okay, thank you, Flemming. I don't see any raised hands at the moment. Oh, still Staffan?
Yeah, thank you, Flemming. So when the farming community is taking the lead, what is their insight? Do they work from this perspective of integrating policies, economics, environment, sustainability, etc., or is it more oriented towards the water quality issues? What is your experience?
Yeah, what we see, for example, in the pilot in WaterDrive, the Untitled partnership, it's both. It is that every partners agree on that they are working to get good ecological status in ūdens in the coastal water, and then that they are accepting that that there is also agriculture and other companies and water companies and so on, but they are working to find solutions. So that's, I think that's what the partnerships are based on. So everybody can, all stakeholders and partners can see themselves in the partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for this very fast-speeded session. Lots of information and ideas, but we will have a short break. I hope we could be back very soon, and then we continue with the presentation by Mikael. Since the project that Mikael was leading was also looking at different governance issues, how to improve the water quality of the Baltic Sea, and we are keen to learn their findings. So thank you so far, and please be back 20 minutes over 10. Thank you.
It's difficult to get a general view of what has been happening in this area of agricultural nutrient management, but we do know that the Baltic Sea is very heavily eutrophied. Actually, 97% of the Baltic Sea suffers from eutrophication according to the latest assessment, and agricultural nutrients are playing a big role here, because about 2/3 of the nutrients from the human activity comes actually from agriculture. Phosphorus tends to play a bigger role in the northern part, and nitrogen in the southern part, and that has to do with the salt content of the water in the Baltic Sea. But the question we were tasked with, because this here is a synthesis project where we were tasked to look into the history and performance of nutrient policy instruments in the Baltic Sea region, and also consider the linkages to the general governance structures and the regulatory traditions and behavior of farmers in the region. And we looked both at output in terms of how international agreements have been translated into decisions by the countries, and also we looked a bit into the outcome, that is the substantive changes, especially for the surplus of nutrients. I want to draw your attention to the Helsinki Convention, because the Helsinki Convention 20 years ago was extended with an annex that sets up legally binding requirements for agriculture, and it's up to then the countries to integrate these binding requirements in their national legislation. And these requirements of the Helsinki Convention actually go further than the EU Nitrates Directive in many ways. For instance, we also here have a limit on how much phosphorus that should be applied per hectare of agricultural land. There's a limit of 25 kilo of phosphorus. You can also probably recognize the limit for nitrogen, 170 kilos. That's similar to the one which is in the Nitrates Directive. But there are also specific requirements for manure storage capacity, which is something you do not have in the Nitrates Directive specified in this way. A minimum of 6 months is required according to the Helsinki Convention. And actually what the convention says is that wherever there are specific requirements mentioned, such as the 6 months, these are supposed to be minimum levels. And the legal nature actually of the Helsinki Convention annexes and in many ways stronger than the Baltic Sea Action Plan because it has the legal nature of being an international convention. And since also the European Union is a party to the Helsinki Convention, there are commitments that follow from the EU Treaty, Article 216, which says that international agreements that are concluded by the Union are binding upon the institutions of the Union and on its member states. This is the reason that in the project we decided to check on the implementation of this annex. And also, as it says here, the annexes are an integral part of the Helsinki Convention. So it doesn't make a difference that these requirements are listed in an annex. We have made with national experts a mapping of the implementation of measures and also what policy instruments have been used in all the 9 countries around the Baltic Sea. And there's a lot of detail in our report that I will not be able to go into just now, but this table is just an extract of the mapping we have done. But once you begin to consider what can be read in this table, you will see there are lots of shortcomings. And actually, most of the countries have not faithfully implemented what they actually signed up to 20 years ago to control agricultural pollution. We find that those countries that have the highest performance are actually Estonia and Sweden, but not even these 2 countries can be said to be fully in compliance with the Helsinki Convention. Other countries have rather large shortcomings, such as, for instance, Germany, that doesn't yet require covers on its manure storage containers. You can also see from the photos here that there are still lots of low-hanging fruits in the region. For instance, in Poland, which accounts for almost 50% of the agricultural land, you can still find open manure lagoons, but that is in contravention with the convention, which says that containers should be made of strong material. Russia, the lower picture is from Russia. It's a chicken farm, and you can see there how chicken manure has been piled up on the soil without any kind of solid floor. And unfortunately, this is generally the situation in Russia, that the manure is being spread in the forests, and less than 20% of the farms, according to the information we could find, have actually manure storage containers in place. And manure storage, that's kind of the first step you need to have in place in order to be able to make the best use of manure and bring it out at the right time of the year. So we have to conclude that it's a rather lax kind of implementation that prevails in most of the countries here, that manure storage is generally not meeting the 6-month requirement for capacity, and also the cover requirements are missing not only in Germany but also in Poland and Russia. And we see also that manure spreading takes place with outdated technology, what you see in the upper photo here, that old-fashioned broad spreading, there you have transformation of some of the nitrogen into ammonia, which then is lost. And that's also an economic loss for the farmers. They have instead to buy expensive mineral fertilizer. So if you plow in the manure, and that's a requirement only in Sweden and Denmark, you can better retain the value of the manure. Also, we saw there was a manure limit of 170 kilos per hectare of nitrogen. Unfortunately, this is being exceeded both in Russia and Denmark. Russia has a limit of 200 kilos, and Denmark has a cattle derogation allowing actually a large part of the country to go up to 230 kilos per hectare. And when we come to the phosphorus limit, it's been implemented strictly only by Sweden and Estonia, and is missing in all the other countries. Surprisingly, also in Finland, which traditionally has put a lot of emphasis on phosphorus reductions. So this weak domestic nutrient governance has, of course, many different kind of explanations. It seems that countries have regarded the Helsinki Convention not as something that was legally binding, but more as something that was providing only some guidance. But we see also that the rural development funds and the money which is available there is not being used systematically to underpin nutrient management. And we see that the capacities at local level to deliver on the requirements are limited or absent in many of the countries. There are some differences here because especially in the eastern countries, the local authorities are much weaker and have less resources to engage with farmers on nutrient management as compared to the Nordic countries, where by tradition local authorities are much stronger and has more resources to work with. Also, we note that there's a lack of advisory capacities to provide guidance to farmers, especially in the eastern Baltic Sea region. This guidance is actually very important to make the best out of the manure and to avoid the loss of nutrients. And in some countries, it's rather the suppliers, the commercial suppliers of fertilizer that tends to be the first stop for guidance for farmers. Also the farmer organizations tend to be more fragmented and weaker in the Eastern Baltic countries and do not have those own resources that can allow them to provide the support for farmers in nutrient management. We also see that the fines that are there for violating the regulations, they are often symbolic and are not imposed consistently. And we see there are lots of coordination issues between ministries and regional agencies and local authorities in monitoring compliance with the rules. So now I was rather critical about some of the shortcomings in the eastern countries, but still, if we consider the actual nutrient surpluses, it's not exactly the eastern countries that have the highest surpluses. The highest surpluses are still found in Denmark and Germany, along with Russia, when we are focusing on nitrogen. You can see here the nitrogen surplus as it has evolved over the past 20 years from the baseline period of the Helsinki Convention around year 2000 and up to the most recent data which Eurostat has published. It is Eurostat that calculates this nutrient surplus, and the nutrient surplus is basically the difference between the amount of nutrients that farmers apply to their fields and the amount of nutrients that are being taken away with crops and other products from the farmland activities. And the biggest nutrient surpluses can be observed besides in Germany and Denmark with their intensive livestock production, also in Russia. And just to say a few words on the developments in Russia, there's been almost a 50% reduction of the agricultural farmland in northwestern Russia since the end of the planned economy. and there has been a concentration of livestock production, especially around St. Petersburg. So that explains the very high nitrogen surplus figure for Northwest Russia. We can see on the other hand that the Baltic states still have rather low nutrient surpluses. There's a more extensive agriculture here, not so much livestock production. When it comes to Poland, we see here a small increase actually in the nutrient surplus as regards nitrogen, and Poland is especially important for the future of the Baltic Sea because we find half of all the farmland in Poland. On phosphorus, the situation is somewhat better than with regard to nitrogen. We see here losses having been reduced in most of the countries. Germany and Estonia even have negative phosphorus surpluses, meaning that farms are able to take away more phosphorus from the farmland that they supply on an annual basis. But we see also still rather high phosphorus surpluses in some countries, especially here in Denmark, although with the culling of all the minks, this phosphorus surplus is likely to be reduced in the future. So in our work, we have also pointed to what is needed to strengthen the policy framework to resolve this lax implementation for the future for the Baltic Sea Action Plan. And we are also very pleased to see that some of our recommendations have actually been taken on board at the high-level ministerial meeting that met in Lübeck recently to revise the Baltic Sea Action Plan. So what are we pointing at? First of all, we are pointing at the possibility to make a much more targeted use of the rural development funds. These are funds from the European Union, and they could be used much more targeted to support manure storage, spreading equipment, and other relevant measures to reduce the nutrient surpluses. We also point towards more performance-based payments under the Common Agricultural Policy, so that farmers will be directly rewarded for putting into place those measures that provide the highest reductions in nutrient surpluses. So in our opinion, it would be better not to give money just on a flat rate for wetlands, but to use those environmental models which exist and which can be used to calculate for different wetlands how big nutrient reductions that can be expected, and to then adjust the payments as to how many kilos or tons of nutrients that are being reduced. Also, field level nutrient bookkeeping, which exists now only in a few countries, is really necessary because it's very difficult to manage what you cannot measure. So nutrient bookkeeping needs to be put in place to begin with for all the large livestock farms, but gradually to cover most of the farms which are there in the Baltic Sea region. And it would be important also that this field level nutrient bookkeeping was not only done on paper, but it was done by digital means with online reporting, so that figures can easily be accessed and analyzed. And finally, we point to the need to use those modeling frameworks which are there to make visible what are the implications of different types of farming practices. And we think there will be lots of opportunities to go down this route with the new CAP strategic plans that have to be prepared by each member state, and which will be overseen by the European Commission. And this will be an opportunity to deliver on the challenges that the agricultural sector is facing. So we think here there are actually some bottom-up options available. Of course, there could also be opportunities to improve more on the top-down implementation if the bottom-up measures are not really successful. First of all, as mentioned in the introduction, the convention measures must actually be considered legally binding. And so these convention measures could be enforced under the EU legal system, either by the court or the ombudsman of the European Union. But we might also see a future where compliance could be strengthened in the same way as in fishery policy, where the European Commission has a monitoring and inspection task force, doesn't inspect fishermen directly, but inspects how the national authorities are doing their job of guiding and ensuring compliance among farmers. So I will finish here.
Yeah.
I think my time is up. I'll just say that this project ran for about 2 years, and I can only here give you a glimpse of what we have observed and concluded, but there are some open access articles, and I give you here the links and hope the slides can be distributed afterwards. We have also looked into the whole economic issue and what could be done to lower the costs of nutrient management. And there's also a new paper from OECD coming out in a very short time, also looking into nutrient management. So thank you now for the attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mikael, so much. I think many of your findings, I mean, the project findings concord with that has WaterDrive concluded from different angles, but yeah, the legally binding issues and then the bottom up where you build the networks and trust and to find out what are the best measures to be applied in a concrete site using the different tools and the best knowledge and practices. So these are the overarching issues. I see that Peter has raised his hand, please.
Yes, thank you. And Mikael, we are great fans of the work that you've done. And I just wondered, as a follow-up question, I mean, if you could say something about your views on, because if I understand it correctly, a lot of your work is focused on the HELCOM, the convention. And I just wondered how you see going down kind of the same path, but with respect to the Water Framework Directive. Whereas there are quite tough legal targets in order to reach good ecological status by 2027. Is that something you looked into, or just what is your view on how going down that path instead?
Yeah, should I reply right away?
Yes, please. Otherwise, we may forget about the question.
Well, I think the Water Framework Directive is a little bit ambiguous when it comes to the Baltic Sea, because the Water Framework Directive doesn't actually cover the open sea directly. But of course, it does address farming, and there is a lot of interaction there. And I think when the river basin management plans are being prepared and submitted, there would be a case for looking into these and whether they actually comply with the policies that have been agreed.
Thank you. Kai, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mikael, for your presentation. There is in the Baltic Sea Action Plan the requirement for the HELCOM member states to have a report ready by 2024 to look at possibilities of implementing fertilizer or nitrogen surplus taxes. I was wondering, what can you recommend to the HELCOM and the HELCOM Secretariat who is drafting the report, what the countries should do in this respect? What experiences are available to learn from them? Thank you.
We have reviewed those experiences in this paper that I have been working on with an economist from OECD, and that will be published in just a few weeks' time. So there is some experience especially from Sweden, but also from Denmark, that show that these taxes can go a long way in helping to reduce the nutrients, and they can be used then to lower other farm taxes, so that it shouldn't be an overall burden on the farm community, but simply an instrument to underpin nutrient management policy.
Thank you.
So Jonas, please.
Hi, hello. I have a question. Then I saw these surpluses, and I was just wondering if this includes organic and mineral fertilizer or just organic?
No, it includes both. There's a huge manual explaining how this is calculated. It's really complex, but includes all kind of side streams and effects.
Thank you.
Sandra, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mikael, for presentation. And yeah, I saw in the presentation that there are indicated gaps, that advisory is not strong enough, and also penalties are not strong enough. But have you made some studies? Why are farmers resistant to implement all these nutrients preservation initiatives and investments on the farms? Because we are already talking for many years about all these measures which should be implemented and policies, but it's somehow difficult to ground them and to get them introduced in real life. And I think it is a very important question how to connect policies with real people on the field who have to do the job. And that's why my question, have you made some studies or some observations also from bottom up? What is the main, these main obstacles for farmers, why they are not taking up all these ideas? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a very important question and a big one, and I'll try just to be brief in my reply, but I think that what we heard also, the experience from Denmark in the beginning, it took quite a while before farmers realized that they were actually making economic losses when they were not extracting the best they could from the manure, and it was just easier to use mineral fertilizer. Of course, manure, it's not so easy to manage. You need to know what you're doing, and it also comes at a cost to spread it appropriately. But you can go a long way actually without having excessive cost when you try to use it better. But I think that in large parts of the Baltic Sea region, maybe there hasn't been enough attention to this. That's also our sense, that there's, especially maybe in Poland, there has not been so much attention to the whole problem here. And of course, also in some cases, politicians maybe go too far in trying to protect farmers where they should rather help them and use the funds they get from the EU to the right purposes.
Okay. Thank you, Mikael, so much, and thank you for the references as well. Afterwards, when we share the presentations, then we can take a closer look at the results and the recommendations that you have made. But finally, I would like to ask you your personal view whether the new CAP strategic plan will respond to several of those challenges that you have highlighted, and or we are just stumbling in the same place. Whether there will be a improvement regarding the new policy. What is your thinking?
I think that's very much up to the member states, but it's also up to the European Commission when they provide their comments to the strategic plans. And maybe there are also an opportunity for everyone else to see what are the plans and to engage in that debate. I hope.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we have reached a moment where all the participants can reflect their views and maybe the ideal picture that we envisage in front of us. What could be the future keywords, future challenges, or the future vision for water management. And I will give the floor now to Sanda and Saindis to carry out the opinion vote.
We have created in the team Mentimeter questions. What Kai already explained, what are the 5 keywords to express for future or water management in the future? So I would like to invite you to go to the chat, and there is a link for Mentimeter, and just click on the link. You will be directed to the Mentimeter, and then you can answer this. Or there are the 5 boxes where you can enter 5 ideas, and then they will be collected in the cloud of ideas, and Sandis will present it on the screen when we will do the job. So I think that we can take some 5 minutes for that.
So please go to the chat room, there's the link, and just fill in 5 of these keywords which you think are the corresponding to the future for the water management. Well, we have some first answers already. All right.
So
we can see that the answers are very diverse, but the leadership and cooperation has been mentioned multiple times.
Yeah, and I see that still half of the participants haven't expressed their keywords yet, but hopefully there are some more coming in. yeah, when I'm looking at those keywords, yeah, there is cooperation, but also, yeah, coordination and leadership probably make up one cluster. And the policy coherence and also is part of this cooperation or joint action cluster. There are lots of other issues that are already very specific, like phosphorus taxes or fertilizer taxes, which are rather concrete measures already. And there are some overall issues like trust and okay, now it's changing again. But also the political support, I can see, is a key word as well. So 23 people have expressed their views. I wonder whether some more coming in. Probably not. But still, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for your views, your suggestions. I think it gives quite a good overview of the complexity of the issues, and it's both a mixture of regulatory measures and voluntary measures, and about communication between the different actors and building the networks and trust, as it has been expressed several times during our session today. But now we are moving further on to our panel discussion. And I would like to invite our panelists to give their views how the WaterDrive strategic recommendations and the findings concord with the wider policies and implementation and actions, and with the panelists' own views, and what to do more or go beyond the current policies, and we have also asked the panelists to provide either in a text or keyword wise vision or a picture that they would like to share with us that it describes their views in the best way. So I would like to give the floor to the first panelist. I'm calling Anne. Is Anne with us? Or if Anne is not yet with us, then let's move on to Jānis Grasbergs. Jānis is the Councillor of the Latvian Minister of Agriculture. How would you describe the future of the water management in agriculture? What?
Yeah, are you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, hello, yes, and greeting to everyone who uses water. And it is clear that together we need to create a solution for water cycle management, but the structural system requires a resource or a source of money. And at the moment, we are all focusing on one source of money, and that is common agro policy. That is this only resource what is for farmers, and until now the CAP has focused on cost recovery so that consumers can buy quality European Union produced products. It is not possible to fully refocus resources on environmental aspects at once, as food for all sections of society must be made available first. Of course, not forgetting the environment and climate change. We must first and foremost talk about the involvement of the whole of society in dealing with environmental issues, because we all leave our footprints behind us. When we go somewhere, these footprints left there, and there we can do anything. I think one step in the direction of cooperation is this map. Are you seeing my background? This presentation, that is melioration systems. What is designed, digitalized, and accessible to all sectors, and a holistic approach to the map is in place. It is a.
But Janis, are you showing the picture now?
You don't see it, yes?
No, I don't.
Actually,
you can try to share it, yeah.
Okay, but maybe Zanda, you can share my picture.
Because I will help with sharing. Yeah, I will just find it.
Yeah, because I don't have it in this. I asked to my Latvian colleague Zanda to find this this picture, and that's why it is to she to care.
Yeah, I will find an open, but you can just go on with the story.
Just continue, yes. And this is a picture of Latvian melioration system, what is, digitalized, and it is actually unique tool used for both policy planning and practical work as well, because we have wet weather, and we have problems with too much water in spring and in autumn, but in last years, we have also problems with how it looks like necessary for irrigation, but this one picture is it's like a melioration system, and yes, it's tool for work and for maintaining as well. And if we look in Latvia, this melioration system has been created from three basic elements. At the first level, it is managed by the owners. It's like farmers, foresters, municipalities. It is possible to identify the users of each system. Here, everyone is responsible for their own system. The second one is a shared drainage system where users are connected by means of ditches. The responsibility for the system lies with the land owner, but there start a little bit problems, and these problems are beginning to arise here if someone does not take care of responsible of his own section or sector. The third one is the national common system where waters flow together into natural rivers and particularly modified rivers, or we called it like channels. And until now, the system has performed only the function of draining water, but it is necessary to refocus on the possibility to take care of water quality and sufficiency. Challenge or future challenge there is reduce plant nutrient leakage, and sources of pollution are all stakeholders like forests, swamps, agricultural land, municipalities, private houses, companies, and etc. This system could be equipped with powerful common water treatment solutions. Of course, not forgetting about individual proper water management on fields, on farms, on companies. The next step we took in Latvia, actually it happened in last summer. It is a regional reform. It is political, but it's bringing together many small municipalities, reducing the number of institutions. And that will lead to better governance as well as a common vision to improve the quality of wastewater entering the common water system, because these water systems are connected. Farms, agricultural lands, and that what comes from this wastewater, what comes from cities. As much as I am a deputy of one of these local governments and also the head of the economic committee in this municipality, I see that the local government has a very important role to play in bringing everyone stakeholder to the same table, because we are all in the one municipality. And of course, the possibility of attracting other funding so that the CAP is not the only source of money. After the election, when I go to know the area, I can conclude that the quality levels of water management differ significantly. Each village needs a slightly different approach. And
so you are, I mean, vocalizing that this local and
yeah, and that actually there is this when I see this difference, then I if I look like we are like member states and the sector whole, this large scale, the situation looks similar. I think it will be difficult,
but there are very localized specifics that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, okay, and that's what I want to say. It's because the current situation is too different when we look at the intensity and level of industrialization of the agricultural and industrial sectors. And in the agricultural sector, there is a very significant difference in the quantity of livestock and the degree of industrialization in general. It would therefore be particularly important to determine the promised units of pollution rather than the percentage reduction. Because if we look this presentation from Mikael Andersen, there we can see this big difference in pollution with nitrogen and this phosphor as well. And I think that is what we must think about, how if we want to take off 30% or 50% of these natural numbers. And I think there we...
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Joonas. We should give the floor also to other speakers. I know that the Estonian ambassador to the European Commission, Martti Mandel, has also a similar picture. Probably he would like to describe what he was thinking when putting this picture, and what is the message from there. I'm trying to share the screen now. So Martti, please.
Hello to everybody and greetings from Brussels. Actually, I'm a representative of Estonian state working in a PERM-rep and working as an attaché, not in the European Commission. And yes, I had similar picture. And why I have this big picture is that we have to, in my, I would think that we should find holistic solutions, that we have this water quality and nutrient management issue, but we also have biodiversity crisis, climate change mitigation, soil and air quality. So we need how to say, like comprehensive solutions here. And in Estonian case, we are planning one eco-scheme under the new CAP. And this eco-scheme, the goal is to promote diverse landscapes and ecosystem services. So in Estonia, we conducted a nationwide mapping project of ecosystem services and assessed the area of influence of various biodiversity elements inside and around fields. So those elements are different landscape features, forests or semi-natural habitats next to the field, grassland strips, etc. And you can see from the picture that every field has an area of influence in percentages, and the threshold for the eco-scheme is 60%, and for higher payment it's 90%. Obviously, for this eco-scheme, the main focus is biodiversity, but it should be clear that more diverse our agricultural landscape is, the more environmental and also probably economic benefits there are. And it will also help to reduce nutrient leaching due to more natural obstacles being present. So I would think that we should find such solutions which are holistic, result-based, measurable, and objective. And probably we have one eco-scheme planned, but we should probably find some additional solutions. And what I like about the WaterDrive is that you will also explore business models. So we are not talking about subsidies or support, but also business models. Because as Janis said, that we should also think about the socio-economic aspect. And in perfect world, those measures and nutrient management solutions should be also beneficial for the farmers in economic sense. So yes, basically my short introduction.
Yeah, this regarding the eco schemes, as we know, these are 1-year commitments. But of course, in order to maintain the landscape features, the biodiversity features, the good soil fertility, and so forth, yeah, it takes a longer period of time, and the results or the performance perhaps wouldn't be visible in just annual basis, but yeah, the good initiative is also important. So thank you. I have been informed that Anne is with us. Anne Kalmari, would you like to take the floor now?
Yes. Do you have my slides there? to share, or should I try myself?
We can also show them. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So sorry to take part just now. I would like to be here all morning, but we have very difficult, very big issues in our committee. There's forestry decision making, for example, taxonomy and taxation and biodiversity, sustainability, 4 different issues, and it took a time. But now I am here. So the next slide, please. So you had asked what are the key issues for the change and development. I see few things. First of all, of course, weather becomes more pronounced. There will be more drought and wetness. And something for your basic knowledge. In Finland, we have very limited direct payments in CAP. Actually, 1/3 comes that way, but 1/3 comes by environmental commitment. We have environment subsidies, which are 1/3 of our subsidies. So more than 90% of our farmers are taking part of that system. And since 1995, we have reduced, for example, 70% of our phosphorus using, and about 40% of our nitrogen using. So it have been very effective, but we still think that we should do more. Farmers are quite proud of environmental work now, but on the other hand, I must say that just now, because profitability is so low, farmers are very afraid of new requirements and like I say, money consuming things. Readiness for them is zero. On the other hand, consumer demands for food production, they are growing. For example, climate, biodiversity, water issues, animal healthcare, things like that. One thing that you mentioned earlier, spokes that I heard, the same things, people are concentrated in cities and nitrogens are not circulated well enough. I think wastewater sludge, for example, Helsinki, there should be something to do for that. You could fertilize whole Uusimaa fields, so very big area for those nitrogen and phosphorus. Of course, there is a lot of things to do before we can do it, but maybe we could get money from company to solve the problems, for example, heavy metals and so on. Okay, this next slide, please. Do WaterDrive's recommendation cover these things? I think very well. Maybe watering should be, irrigation should not be forgotten in addition to drying. It will be future in every country, in Finland as well. And even all the time you and we do that thing, engaging farmers should be even better than nowadays. You can't never do too much. And public money should be allocated to projects that also support farmers better income. that better income is very important things to understand. And water management does not work unless combined with other goals. That's important thing to notice as well.
Anne, what would be the key issues that you would like to draw our attention to? I mean, just to remember when you were preparing for the presentation, and then you thought over some of the key issues.
Key issues. Maybe I come to the next slides. Tim, let's wait a little bit. Okay. And
we have two more panelists to listen to that.
Okay. Okay. Just then, one key issue is actually in these slides: ecological compensation for companies and market mechanism for consumers. I think we must take them with us, because you can't have enough money in CAP to spread for these things if you don't get money from market. And another key issue is requirements for cities, because if there's same things that they have to do than farmers, there will be more money to solve this problem. Okay, the next slide. So these are things that investment support should be targeted at: drainage, regulatory drainage, nitrogen cycle investments, collector crops, vegetation management, flood water management, and irrigation systems. You can put the next slide. So how CAP thinks about that? We have had many things previous period too. I don't mention them because you can read, but new soil productivity and resistance to extreme water and pests. That is something that we must do more in next CAP. And another thing was that money from consumers and companies that I mentioned a few slides ago. Okay, maybe you can put the next slide, please. So, understanding that agricultural productivity, climate action, and water protection all depend on good water management. We need to build resilience on farm level to different weather, floods, droughts, and mild winters. That's maybe the most important common point. Thanks.
So thank you, Anna, for now, and I hope you can stay also till the end, where we have some of the conclusions. But I would now like to give the floor to our next panelist, Svajonas from Lithuania, and then Rafael from Poland. But since we are short of time, I'm asking you to highlight just the three most important keywords that you would like to stress and draw our attention to. So please, Svajonas.
Oh, thank you for having me here. And I actually just have three keywords, so I hope I fit well. So then I saw your how to say bullet points with 10, and I had thoughts in my head. what are prerequisites for this to be implemented in Lithuania? So then I thought about public awareness, institutional change, and pilot examples. So what you see is a river actually in Lithuania in agriculture area. So my future kind of vision would be this river to be a river, not kind of like a field of reeds. And so most of the people in Lithuania, what I talk, actually majority, they are not aware how farming is connected to this kind of issues and what its actual problem and how it should be dealt. So this public awareness is very important, because we need to get, how to say, politicians really in a, how to say, to raise this question and to talk what it should be solved. And also institutional change is important for this cross-sectional cooperation, because now we kind of have this historical command and control maybe institutions, and there is lack of horizontal connections in the institutions and between institutions. So this have to be changed for these good practices to be implemented, and also pilot examples, to have these examples to show to people what, okay, we have some good things, what we can do is good for farmers, is good for people who like nature, is good for local environment as well. So it's very important, but these three things would be also talked deal before we can apply all these other things. I mean, they should be applied, but this is very important to have this in place, so all other things would be more successful as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Very brief, very concise. Thank you for that.
Okay, I tried to disconnect.
Could I have now Rafael with us?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
What are your three key messages?
Well, actually, they all fall in those three mentioned by Svajūnas in his slide. I didn't prepare my slide, but I would like to, show the perspective of Poland, which is the biggest agricultural country in Baltic Sea basin. So we have long-lasting history of problems with water quality. So providing most of the loads to Baltic Sea and struggling with limiting them. Right now we have several institutional legal changes in the fertilization practices for farmers. So actually we use rather a stick than a carrot to make them comply. Obviously at farmer level, it is farmers usually look at the money, at the economical result, not environmental result. That's why it's a bit difficult to educate them. It's one thing, and then make them or convince them to comply, because you have to invest a lot to make this solid ground for organic fertilizer, so that it is isolated from the soil and groundwaters. But water quality is only one issue we face. The major issue, the most important issue right now, is water quantity. We have problems with droughts severe problems since 2006, and actually, according to our data from our institute, since 1981 we have drought every year, of different scale, obviously, and different intensity. But since 2006 we have really severe droughts in Poland. Like in 2015 we had 93% of communes were affected. So 90% of communes in terms of agricultural production. So there were more than 30% yield loss due to the drought. And when we look at the climate change scenarios and hydrology bound to it, we will see that the climatic water balance will drop. It is now already difficult, like -100, -200 in some places. annual climatic water balance, but it will drop by 100 millimeters at least by 2050. And we are already facing water lacks, water shortages for irrigation. We already face some of the cities didn't have water because the source ran out, especially in the center of the country. So water shortage is the most important thing in water management these days. Obviously, we don't forget about water quality, because if you have less water flowing in the rivers and you have the same amount of fertilizer, you have more like a soup, not the water flowing into the Baltic Sea.
And what is the third issue?
Those are main issues, but the solutions are already. The government tries to be proactive in that, and that's very good. And we also, the scientists, the researchers, we are pushing a lot to make them for them to be aware that we don't have the time really to waste, to prepare ourselves for the coming new climate. So the government issued several strategies. One of those is the strategy for the reduction of drought effects. The other one, the strategy for how to translate it to avoid, let's say, water shortages. I'm also realizing right now the code of good practice for water management for agriculture. Right now, we will finish it in, let's say, 1 month. And the most important thing from the institutional point of view, and also pilot implementation, are local water partnerships, which are very important. We have normally water management structure in Europe is you have the water management authority at the level of country, and it goes down to the smallest river basins, river watershed catchments. And it does not correspond to the administrative boundaries, obviously. So at administrative boundaries, most of the economy is actually bound to it. So those water partnerships, local water partnerships, aim to develop local strategies for water management. It goes with water, especially small retention, but also agronomy, making people aware, especially farmers, aware about the shortages, about the ways to increase the retention, and also increase the quality of water. So those are current policy instruments implemented in Poland.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Staffan,
you.
and all the other panelists. And I'm really sorry about putting pressure on you, but yeah, lots of things to discuss and different perspectives. How to conclude that, and what could be the next steps, and what are the findings of today? I'm now giving the word back to Staffan Lund, who is the coordinator of WaterDrive, and also Airi Kylvet, who have been closely listening to all the presentations, and we might conclude from this session. So thank you so much from my part, and now I'm giving over the word to Staffan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kaja, and thank you all participants for your nice contributions to the discussion. I think we will wrap up pretty shortly. Ari, I will do some comments from the project side and our experience, but if you in some 2-3 minutes could share your view on from the farmers side. What do you think about the issues that has been brought forward today in the discussion? Please. We cannot hear you, Airi.
Oh, you can hear me? Me? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you nicely. Please go ahead.
Very shortly share my screen. no, if it's possible. And I promise I won't keep you long, but the basic problem with the water protections, with the farmer's view, is the one thing with the problem with the water is to understand the problem, because the water has this issue that it's moving, and usually the farmers who pollutes the water doesn't see the problem because it's not in his position to see. And the other thing is what is very important. We have to avoid the greenwashing or the water washing at this point, because as we see the previous presenter showed that in Estonian case, I can say that as our numbers are quite low in emissions, and then our agricultural organizations tend to minimize the problem. And again, the farmers understand that in our case, everything's okay. We don't have to do anything. In Estonia, we don't have so many animals, but actually it's all about how you show things, because we have animals and we have a lot of organic land, and that's why it's like floating everywhere. And in some points where the agriculture production is very intensified, there we have the same problems, or even worse, that in Poland or on Denmark or whatever, where we have too much nitrogen. And the one thing that it was talked already today is the lack of information for the farmer, the lack of environmental consultants or advisors. And the problem that the environmentally friendly production do not deliver results. And it's again coming back to this greenwashing, because we are making the measures that really don't work, that look good. For at this point, I will say about our Estonian new cap. Martti actually showed us. I was also very excited when I saw this kind of measure, this eco-services. But we have one problem with that measure. It's all about money for the farmer, and the amount of if farmer uses this measure, he gets like 20 euros per hectare. And this is if it compared to another subsidies, it's so small amount of sum for the farmer. He gets so much more money for the business as usual, so he doesn't just use it. So that is the problem, that the good measure, and it's really working measure, is turned to greenwashing again, because nobody will use it. And that's the conclusion. The farmers, we as farmers, we still haven't given enough importance for the problem, for this water pollution, and because we don't see it, and it's like a far away problem if it's in somewhere in sea, that we see that the sea is polluted with too much nitrogen. And for the solutions, I can see that I would rather see a greater role of one-to-one farm advisory services, and mapping the farm specific problems and finding solutions at local level. And how to do it, it must be some organizations that farmers trust, and then give a service from that. But how to start with it, this is the biggest issue, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Irie, and great contribution. I will just comment shortly then to finalize the workshop. I think it's actually a little bit premature from my side to conclude and to finalize things, but because what you have illustrated is the complexity of the problem and the importance of engagement. the different levels of society. So I will, in a way, and I think all of us trust your commitment to continue doing the work that you already has initiated. But just to comment some few things, you know, you remember we had this word cloud. Clearly the issues of cooperation, coordination and trust move forward as a key issue. And actually it's like the headings of our leadership manual that you have listed in this word cloud. So I would recommend you to look into the leadership manual. It's located on the WaterDrive website. And still, I think we have great challenges to develop the leadership. And Iri, you put a very important point here, that the farmers and the agricultural community seems to be ready to step in and take a stronger leadership role. But at the same time, we need to have more information, more knowledge for the agriculture community. And we had yesterday an interesting discussion about the financing in another workshop, and it turned out that the farmers said, organizations are coming to collect data about my farm, but and there is 10 or 20 organizations collecting the data. But where am I in that big data, and who is actually owning this data and information about the farm? So it's important. I think you have also pointed to the important issue of balancing top-down and bottom-up perspective. And that was also a key part of the workshop, actually. And you pointed out clearly that we need to balance what we are doing from top-down and bottom-up. And if we are successful in that balancing, I think we will have problems with the leadership issues in the future. There was also interesting comments about the need from Poland and from Sweden and maybe more countries about the need to, and also Lithuania, about the need to look at the institutions working with those issues and the organizational issues. Then it's more maybe located in the governmental and the governance structures, but how do we organize and how do we cooperate within the government structures to support this development? So I think I finalize by that. This workshop convinced me that we actually have a joint target picture. How to go ahead. It seems like all the panelists have a strong motivation to combine agricultural issues with environmental issues, and I think that is the key to continue along this path. So by that, I would like to finalize, Kaja, and thank you all very much for your participation. I just would like to tell you that we have another seminar on education and training needs, which will be running on the 7th of December. It's run from our partners in Poland. And then on the 14th of December, we will have a seminar about water management in a changing climate, which is also a key issue that runs on the 14th of December. So thank you very much. And I don't know, Kaja, if you would like to say something.
I would like to express my gratitude to all the participants and the speakers, and because we really, with your help and contribution, could cover all the spectrum from farmers to the high level politicians, and giving the moment of today where the important policy is going to be adopted at the European level, and how all the actors could contribute to those policies, and what needs to be done at the member state level and at the Baltic Sea Region level. I think this is very important momentum at the moment. And yeah, I would like to thank everybody for today's participation.
Thank you very much, Kaja, and thank you very much, Sandis, for all, and Sanda for all the technical arrangements.
Yeah,
okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.